Yo, what is up guys? Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So, Conor Benn brutally knocks out Chris Algieri in the 4th round of a one-sided fight. And in my opinion, this was the best performance of Conor Benn's career so far. It has to be said, Chris Algieri, 37 years old, been very inactive in recent years. He's seen better days, and quite frankly, I never really rated Chris Algieri all that highly to begin with. But regardless, Conor Benn, he did his job. He did what he needed to do, and he did it in brutal fashion. Now, if you look at Conor Benn's last fight, he fought Adrian Granados, a tough gatekeeper who was really negative against Conor Benn. And I think we saw in that fight, despite Conor Benn winning clearly, he was kind of out of ideas in regards to cutting off a ring, applying effective pressure. He didn't do a good job of it. But in this fight against Chris Algieri, a guy who primarily fights off a move, I felt Conor Benn did a much better job at applying pressure. First and foremost, his jab in this fight was much more consistent and much better than the Adrian Granados fight. Right from round 1, Conor Benn was utilising that jab as he was coming forwards to apply pressure on Chris Algieri. He was also feinting the jab quite effectively as well, so he'd feint with a jab downstairs and then flick a jab to Chris Algieri's head. He was also feinting the jab to the head, and he would throw a right hand to the head off that feint. And what I also liked was that Conor Benn was taking his head off centre line as he was jabbing, and that made it hard for Chris Algieri to time Conor Benn's jab with his own right hand. So Conor Benn was applying effective pressure early on behind that jab. He was closing distance effectively and landing good body shots and also some good chopping overhand rights. Chris Algieri, he was landing a couple of left hooks to the head here and there. One thing about Conor Benn in this fight, and most of his fights to be honest, he always kind of carries that guard a little too low. I'd like to see him raise that guard a little bit because he's always been open for the left hook, and we saw that in this fight. Chris Algieri wasn't doing much damage with the left hook, but nevertheless they were still landing on occasion. Another habit that Conor Benn hasn't broke, and I saw this early in this fight, was how Conor Benn, sometimes he'll throw a straight right hand to the body, but a lot of times he kind of throws it out of range, and he really leans into it. So basically, his feet stay stationary, and sometimes when he throws the straight right hand to the body, and even to the head on occasions, he'll really lean into it, and his head basically goes over his front foot, and he's right on centre line. And in those moments, Conor Benn does look very open, but nobody's taken advantage of it at this point in time. But he needs to definitely tidy up on that. He does still make a lot of defensive mistakes, Conor Benn. But offensively, he is getting a lot better in terms of punch variety, pressure fighting. The jab as an offensive weapon and to set up offense is getting a lot better. His punches are a lot more crisper now, and we saw that in round 1. Round 2 was more of the same. It was Conor Benn dictating behind that jab, applying pressure. He was landing some good body shots on Chris Algieri, which I think those body shots were getting to Algieri throughout this fight. He landed some sickening left hooks to the body, Conor Benn, and he actually dropped Chris Algieri in the 2nd round. Well, it was ruled a knockdown, but it shouldn't have been a knockdown. Conor Benn threw a left hook. It missed Chris Algieri, and the palm of Conor Benn's glove touched Chris Algieri on the back of the head. Algieri went down, and it was ruled a knockdown, but it wasn't a knockdown, it wasn't a scoring punch, so they got that wrong. But regardless, Conor Benn pretty much dominated round 2. Round 3, Algieri tried to throw a few shots back and meet fire with fire. He landed a good left hook in the 3rd round, actually. A pretty good left hook. He landed a couple of right hands as well, exchanging with Conor Benn, but Conor Benn was getting the better of it. Shorter, more compact punches, quicker hands, more variety in his work, and most importantly, Conor Benn's punches had a lot more power, so Conor Benn was getting the better of the exchanges in the 3rd round. But Algieri tried to change it up a little bit. He tried to catch Benn coming in, and he did on occasion, but Chris Algieri just doesn't have any power. And round 4 was where the fight ended. And once again, Algieri tried to come out a bit more purposeful in the 4th round, trying to work the body of Conor Benn and throw a few more power shots. But Algieri soon got backed up to the ropes, and Conor Benn landed the good old trusty traditional jab right hand. The jab kind of blinded Chris Algieri, and the right hand behind it completely iced Chris Algieri and knocked him out. Really good knockout for Conor Benn. A good performance by Conor Benn, and in my opinion, this was the best Conor Benn has ever looked, in my opinion. So, in regards to Benn's performance, very good. He impressed. He did what you needed to do against a faded veteran, much better than the Adrian Granados fight. So, as far as the performance goes, Conor Benn did well. Obviously, you have to take into account where Algieri's at now. He's not the guy he once was, like I said previously, but Conor Benn did what he needed to do. But quite frankly, going forwards, I think Conor Benn needs a test. He needs to fight somebody with ambition. He's fought a few sort of faded gatekeepers in his last few fights, and that's fair enough, but he's had a few of those fights now. I think it's time for Conor Benn, like I say, to fight somebody with ambition. Even if it's Michael McKinson, for example, I wouldn't have a problem with that. Just somebody who's not going to go in there to try and make up the numbers, basically. And yeah, I think Michael McKinson would be a good fight for Conor Benn. Obviously, the Avanesian fight would be ideal. That's a great fight. Avanesian, of course, has that European title. He's very highly ranked. And, you know, he's not the elite of the elite at welterweight, but I would still describe Avanesian as world level, or at worst, fringe world level. So, Avanesian would be a great fight. And considering Conor Benn's style, it would be a war, and it would definitely be must-watch TV. All I'm asking for is Conor Benn to, you know, step up and have fights of consequence, especially considering the hype surrounding Conor Benn, how they're selling him as being a couple of fights away from a world title. If that is the case, you do need to be fighting better competition than a faded Chris Algieri. That's all I'm saying. I mean, I'll be honest. Even if they fought Florian Marku next, I wouldn't complain personally. I mean, if I was managing Conor Benn or promoting him, I would make that Florian Marku fight next. Marku's unbeaten, he's ambitious, he carries a bit of power, and he sells a lot of tickets. He's very popular with his Albanian fans, and that fight would make for some good build-up as well, Conor Benn versus Florian Marku, and it's very winnable as well. So I would have Conor Benn fight Marku next, then Michael McKinson, and then David Avanesian. That's the route I would go if I was managing Conor Benn. But again, all I want from Conor Benn now is to fight somebody with a bit of ambition. None of these faded sort of guys like Chris Algieri, like Adrian Granados. He's had those fights now. They're talking about Adrian Broner next. I mean, Broner, he's a name. Broner versus Benn would draw a lot of interest, so commercially I get why that fight would be made. But Adrian Broner now is basically in that same mould as Chris Algieri. He's just a faded gatekeeper now, but he just happens to have a big name. So, yeah, I mean, and Broner looked horrible in his last fight, let's not forget. So, I mean, I get why the Broner fight would be made, but I don't think you'll find out much about Conor Benn in that fight personally. But there you go. And yeah, I mean, the hype with Conor Benn right now, in my opinion, is over the top. I still think he needs more fights, and he needs to tighten up defensively, because right now, listen, as much as Conor Benn has improved as a fighter since debut, he's got a lot better, but he still has glaring holes, and at world level, at elite level, he'll get taken apart right now quite decisively, in my opinion. So, there you go. Conor Benn's a weird one. I do think that the hype surrounding him is a little over the top, but at the same time, I do recognise that Conor Benn, in my opinion at least, is an improving fighter. He is getting better, so we'll see what happens with Conor Benn. Good performance though, great knockout. Congratulations to Conor Benn. Hopefully we see him in an interesting fight early next year. Anyway, share your thoughts below. It's been your guy Delboy. Peace.